So the fall is here. There's a little nip in the air. And I love this season because I get to be a little bit more daring with my attire, a little more adventurous, and also get to be a little bit more adventurous with my fragrances. I think fall is one of the best seasons for fragrances because you can be a little darker, a little sweeter, a little spicier, have a little more creativity to the scents that you wear. And this is a top 10 list of my absolute favorite fragrances for the fall of 2018. What's going on YouTube? Tony here, back with another video. Now this is my first fall list. I actually made a list last year and just didn't put it out. And so there's different scents on this list, scents that I didn't have back then, some scents I did have back then that were on that list. Without further ado, let's get into it. Coming in at number 10, I think the black sheep of the Mugler line. This is Pure Wood. This actually made my spring list. And quite honestly, I actually wore this sometime during the summer too. This is one that just works for me. I don't see a lot of people giving a lot of love to this. This is sawdust, whiskey, and a smooth, creamy dry down. Get a lot of compliments on that. Just, I don't know, something just makes me feel good when I wear that one. I feel like I smell good when I wear this. Again, not a lot of hype or anything like that. This is just one of my personal favorites. I think I said maybe in a acquisition video or something like that, that I didn't buy the Mugler line in the order that they were released. And so my affinity for that line probably doesn't line up with a lot of people. But this one I think is really good. A lot of these I smelled all at the same time. So I think my opinion is kind of based on smelling the whole group of fragrances around the same time and not building an affinity for one and then smelling the other. And so that's probably why this is probably high on my list and not a lot of other people. I love the way that smells. Coming in at number 10, Pure Wood. Now, number 9 on the list was one of those fragrances that wasn't on last year. I didn't wear it last year, but wearing the mess out of it this fall. Will be wearing the mess out of it this fall, and it's from the house of Salvatore Ferragamo, and it's called Uomo. This is considered a woody oriental fragrance, and I guess I can see that. I'm gonna call it a gourmand because this smells like a dessert, and I can never think of a bad time to smell like a dessert. Especially on date nights and things of that nature, when it gets cold. I'm going to be wearing the mess out of that one. The only drawback to this one is there's a heavy dose of ambroxan in it, and I'm not a huge fan of these, of the note of ambroxan. People are seeming to go really heavy on it, and I want to say it's because it's like a fixative and it helps with the performance. It doesn't smell bad, but it smells synthetic. And to me, once this gets into the base, that ambroxan comes out a little bit. However, this smells so good and the performance are so good on the other notes that kind of mask that ambroxan for me. So I can get to the 6, 7, 8 hour mark with this one. By that time, I'm ready to wash it off anyway. So from the house of Salvatore Ferragamo, that's Uomo. Now, number 8 is a staple in the community and probably no stranger to anybody's fall list. From the house of Dolce & Gabbana, it's the one. This is a spicy tobacco, sweet spicy tobacco, masculine, sexy, dark, mysterious, just a masterpiece from Olivier Polge. And it doesn't matter to me. Sometimes I wear the Eau de Parfum concentration, which is in this little darker bottle. I also have the Eau de Toilette, very similar in DNA. This is just like the bottle, a little darker. I wear this summer nights and spring, and I break this one out fall and winter. Can't go wrong with either one of these. And as you can see, these are the 5-ounce bottles. Love this fragrance. Going to wear a lot of this, especially to work coming up this fall. Dolce & Gabbana one. Coming in at number 7 is my favorite from the Paco Rabanne house, and it's 1 Million Prive. This one I call like the mature one of the bunch. I think I've said on record before that I'm not a huge fan of the house of Paco Rabanne as a whole. They seem to be a little brash and a little over the top. A lot of their fragrances have like this bubblegum type accord in them. I don't know, it's just not for me personally. However, this one is I think classified more as a Oriental woody. It's a very good solid scent. Tobacco is one of those notes that does really well on my skin, and this one, my skin brings out the tobacco in this. It's sweet. I want to say there's some tonka bean in there that makes it sweet. There's tonka bean in this. Yeah, there's tonka bean in that gives it some sweetness. There's some cinnamon in there, just not overdone with the cinnamon. Just I think a very good balance of sweetness, tobacco, and some spice from that cinnamon. Just a home run in my opinion from the house, and I think a needed addition to the line, something a little more mature, solid option from the house of Paco Rabanne, 1 Million Prive. Now at number 6 is another, I would say it's a new acquisition. I actually had a decan of this a couple years back and kind of went through what I've implemented as a simple buy program. I sample the fragrance. If I like it, I decant it. If I wear it and I go through that decant, then I go ahead and I get a bottle. And this was the fragrance that went through that regimen, if you will, and it's from the house of John Varvatos, and it's called Vintage. Now this house is known for having scents that aren't, they're a little lackluster on performance. I actually don't mind that. The fragrances that I own from them, they kind of have a date-like feel to them, and this one's no exception. This is a gorgeous date fragrance. Spicy, leathery, very regal, I think, in my opinion. Dressed up date night fragrance that will die down and not be too overbearing when it's time to get close. A perfect fragrance for that. Dry down on that is heavenly too. If you hadn't got your nose on that one, you need to smell that one and get that on your skin too. Let it dry down. I don't think you'll be disappointed on that. John Varvatos Vintage. Now coming in at number 5 is a fragrance that may be a little too heavy for the fall, but I'm going to break it out and I'm going to wear it. If you're in a different climate, if you're in a little cooler climate, if it's really cold right now, I think pure malt would be a good one to start wearing. And I'm breaking it out just because it's still warm here, but I have to start breaking this out and wearing it just because it's never cold enough, I feel like, to wear this. So I'm gonna have to go just easy on the spray less and wear it in some of those warmer fall days. It's kind of a drawback from living here in Texas, but this is absolute gorgeous fragrance. It's a boozy patchouli with notes of like chocolate in it. Just another great date night fragrance, and even sometimes the way that it feels, like going out to like a bar to watch the game, football game, things like that. I think the last couple of times I wore it to like a bar to watch the game with the fellas. It kind of has that kind of feel to it. I can see somebody trying to wear this, or I can see somebody wearing this to like a smoke lounge, whiskey, cigars, things of that nature. It just kind of has that vibe to it to me, from the house of Mugler, and it's pure malt. Now number 4 on the list is a fragrance from the house of Jean Paul Gaultier, and it's Ultra Malt. And Francis K did his thing with this one. This one's an Oriental Fougere. I'm actually gonna spray that one. Man, it's weird because it has like some pear notes in it, pear and vanilla, and I think some cinnamon. It's just some notes that you wouldn't think would go together well, in my opinion. But the way it comes off is just amazing. It's I think known in the community as like a clubbing type scent. I don't frequent a lot of clubs, but definitely going to be wearing a lot of this one date nights, and when it gets a little colder, probably will try to pull that off wearing it to work too, just not going heavy on the sprays. This is one that I bought, blind bought, simply on recommendation. I saw enough people that reviewers talk about this and give it high praise, and a lot of opinions that I think I respect. And so I pulled the trigger and bought this. And I bought the small bottle. What is this? It's like 40 mils. This is like, I don't think it gets any smaller than that. It's almost like a big decant. But I bought the small, and I'm kicking myself because I wish I would have bought a bigger bottle. And one of my close buddies, we went out and he was looking for something, and I recommended him this, and he got the big bottle, and I had bottle envy because I only got the smaller one, and I wish I would have bought the bigger one. I like it that much. Like again, Francis K did his thing with this one. This is John Paul Ultra Malt. Now, coming in at number 3 is one of my all-time favorite scents. I did a review on this, and I said it was the best fragrance that I ever smelled. I think that still holds true, and it's 1270 by Frapin. Now, this was a work staple for me last fall. No, it doesn't perform great. It turns into a skin scent around that 4 to 5 hour range, but I don't mind doubling up on the sprays. During the summer and spring, I can probably pull a little more, maybe around that 6 to 7 hour range as far as projection is concerned, before it becomes a skin scent. But again, I don't care. It smells so good. I don't mind reapplying if I have to reapply to wear that to work. And again, at work, you don't want something that's going to really push out and be disruptive in a work environment, professional environment. So I don't mind the performance on this. It is constructed or inspired by the aromas that you find in cognac creation. So there's dried fruit from the grapes, there's soil, there's some woods from the oak cast that the cognac is aged in, and you get all that. And I actually got that before I did research for the review, and found out that that's actually what the inspiration was. When I first smelled this, I thought a sweet version of like a old fashioned, which has like orange and sugar around the rim, crushed oranges. Grand Marnier is, I'm not a huge drinker, but Grand Marnier is my go-to when I want to sip on something. And that is kind of what I get from this. It's 1270, the Grand Marnier of fragrances. Now, coming in at number 2 on this list is another one that doesn't need any introduction. If you've watched any YouTubers on YouTube, or you've done any research about the best fragrances on the market for men, you probably come across this one, and this one's from Dior, and it's called Dior Homme. And this is probably, I'm going ahead and say, probably the sexiest fragrance that I own. This is the quintessential date fragrance for me. That DNA is just magical. Now there's Dior Homme, the regular Dior Homme is one of my all-time favorite scents. It really started to grow on me. This was one of the first, when I discovered the fragrance community, one of the first decants that I bought based on recommendations for the best fragrance out. And Dior Homme Intense just gives me more of what I love out of Dior Homme. Sometimes can be maybe a little too sweet, maybe a little too flirtatious, a little too sexy to wear on a day-to-day basis. But when me and the missus want to go out and I want to be dressed to the nines, I want to look good, I want to smell even better, I'm reaching for Dior Homme. It's sweet iris. There's like some cocoa powder, this marshmallowy type vibe. It's hard to explain. You got to get your nose on it if you have not smelled this. Just one of the best fragrances on the market for men, in my opinion. Dior Homme Intense. And without further ado, the absolute #1 fragrance that I'll be wearing this fall is from the house of Van Cleef and Arpels, and it is from their collection Extraordinaire line, and it's called Ambre Imperial. Now, I recently went on a trip to Toronto and was able to get out and smell a bunch of fragrances that at the time I actually didn't have here local. So I had a field day smelling a bunch of fragrances, and this is one that I thought, as soon as I smelled it, like, man, that's really good. I'm gonna put this on my skin, because I had the notion at the time that this was gonna be a purchase. It smelled that good off the sprayer, and I sprayed it on my skin. I walked around town with it on the back of my hand and just kept smelling myself. And I was eating dinner at this restaurant, and I guess this bartender kept noticed that I kept smelling my hands. She's like, "What are you smelling?" And I let her smell it, and I forget the exact statement that she made, but she said something like that this was like next level, and which just solidified, you know, my opinion of the fragrance. And the fact that I was going to buy it. And I think I actually purchased it before I even left Toronto and had it shipped to the house. So this is an amber-based fragrance. I'll be honest with you, there's not a whole lot going on as far as movement is concerned. I think this is considered, I don't know if this is high-end designer or niche, I'm not really sure. But it's very high quality, very smooth. There's like some pink pepper and spice in it. Just a gorgeous, gorgeous amber that works very well with my skin. Performance is great, smell is great, and perfect. Not too heavy, not too sweet. Fall is perfect for this. I've been on the amber kick lately too, so I'm not. They probably has something to do with this being as high as on the list as it is because I've kind of discovered this love for amber fragrances, and this just fits the build perfectly. Well, that is my fall list for 2018. Let me know what you guys think about this list. Any favorites on it, any opinions on the fragrances that are in it, any omissions that you think that should be considered on this list too. Always like hearing that feedback, and I will see you in the next vid. Peace. It's time to get close.